just a flesh wound. Look, stop that! Chicken! Chicken! Look, I'll have your leg!
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
You're listening to The Review on the OSG Podcasting Network.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to The Review. John Wilkerson here, John Nelson to my left.
Well, my right. And he froze, just like he warned that was going to happen.
Yeah, he did.
OSG Phil Cantor, if you will. I'm here in the extra square, looking at the Skype monitor while we record this, because we have adapted to the New World Order, as John calls it, and improvised ways to come up with what method to present our college football podcast. If you're watching on Skype or our YouTube channel, if you will, and you see the video part that we're talking about. If you're listening,
I'm back, by the way.
Podcast,
All right, yay!
I hear you, Wilkie. Where are you, Wilkie?
Probably gonna have to hear.
Where are you? We can't see you. Come back.
But for those of you hanging out, there's a bunch of different ways to catch us, as you always do. And it is on Facebook. It is on our YouTube channel. It is on Twitter, and it is through the app. I guess I should show everybody the app, available iOS and Android, right? Let's see. So right there you go. There it is, iOS and Android. Download. If it's free, it's me, and so therefore it's me. And so with the intro out of the way, of us being in all of our separate offices, Wilkie, I know that you had something on the table that you wanted to address off the top.
Yes, I do. And of course, we all know what we're going through right now with COVID-19.
You get classes. I know you can.
What's that?
I saw you reach behind.
I got to get my cheaters. I think we touched on it last week, and it was kind of the genesis stage, and now we're seeing full-blown ADs. I'll be clean here. Pooping bricks about perhaps the college football season may not be happening. First of all, I think we talked about last week Iowa State and their pay cuts. Wyoming athletic director also is having his pay cut as well by 10%. I got the name here somewhere. All my notes were scattered as I was trying to get back online here. But Wyoming is also going to cut their pay. Tom Berman is going to cut his pay by 10%, roughly $30,000 out of his pocket. The salaries of all athletic department personnel are also going to be cut. So those are the only two I know of that I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of this. But the fact that there might not be a college football season, or if it's an abbreviated season, ADs are already seeing, especially with the NCAA saying the spring sport athletes can have be on scholarship. There's a lot of expense here and not enough revenue coming in. We're seeing some tough times with these athletic departments.
And I think that's probably something, unfortunately, that's only going to get worse here as everybody self-quarantines, or in many states are locked down and aren't able to access any athletic facilities and really kind of organize to play any sports. And you've got nothing that would help generate any revenue at this point in time. And I think what you're going to see, at least from my perspective, you're going to see the smaller schools making the cuts financially to their budget to their operating costs early on. The bigger schools are going to hold off as long as they can. But I think unless something changes here within the next month, I think you're going to see it hit just about everybody. Don't you agree, John?
Yeah, you're looking at, I mean, and I would take your theory, and I would hope that it might be the inverse, where we're already seeing, Iowa State and Wyoming, as Wilkie mentioned. But what I think we should see, and I don't know if we're going to, even though I think that your model's probably going to be the one that kicks in first, is to have all of the Power 5 schools and their administrators and their coaches be the ones that would step up to the fore, because knowing how many coaches that have salaries that are mid six figures, that are seven figures to the left of the decimal place, I'd like to see that example being set simultaneously. But I don't know if we're going to get there. I think that what we've seen from Iowa State and Wyoming are those examples where you have Go Fives, and I think that we're going to see this in FCS, D2, D3, and AIA. I think that you're going to see, just out of necessity, not necessarily out of a time frame, that they're going to be the ones that are going to be making this stuff public before the Power Fives, although it would be nice to have Power 5 coaches making that step as well, Wilkie, where you sit there and it's like, all right, we see all of these schools that need to make these changes, and then, all right, here we go. But no, I think that it's going to be out of necessity, Wilkie, more than anything, that you're going to see the Go Fives go first.
Well, simply because they don't have the TV money revenue that the Power 5 have,
Right.
and they can make up a little of it, of that money, with the gate receipts and the concessions, but at the same time, the TV money, with the exception of probably the American, they just don't have that war chest to go to. I'm fascinated by some of the comments by Keith Carter, the athletic director of Ole Miss, basically saying that right now they're okay if there's some kind of football season, some kind of form or fashion. But when you look at Ole Miss, what they're facing right now, they've got a lot of liability to their whatever income they coming in, because they got nothing really from the SEC last year as far as bowl money, because of being on probation. Now you got the pandemic. You're paying off Matt Luke and his staff after letting them go, and bringing in Lane Kiffin and that expense. And they're suffering from reduced ticket sales, and which is kind of a problem we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, as a part of the deal, where we mentioned with all the big stadia fill in the SEC, you're not seeing full seats. Kyle Field expands, and you're probably still seeing 10% of it unused. Ole Miss, in the days of disposable income, folks are sitting there and they're just not interested in going and spending all of this money, because it is basically taking 5 or 6 vacations a year where you're having to pack up, pay oversized hotel rates, all these kinds of things, all these different factors. So, no, I think that in the larger conferences too, Phil, I think that you're seeing this where you're having schools, and Ole Miss being an interesting example, because I had taken the probation idea out of it and just was thinking of the revenue that they were getting in. But for a team that's on probation and has a lot of back salaries to pay, it does turn into an issue. And Oxford, Keith Carter was one of the ones that came to the fore and mentioned it.
Well, yeah, I'll bring this question up because it's kind of one that's starting to present itself here.
Yeah.
You're talking about a world where teams in the SEC, for example, are taking in $45-50 million a year TV money, plus the 7 to 8 figures that they're taking in from boosters and the athletic foundation and all that.
Right.
But they're turning around and spending it.
Yeah.
Not stockpiling money. And that's why I say that it'll take a little longer for the bigger schools to get to the point where they're starting to cut things, just for the simple fact that they've got some money already in reserve. Most of them are operating in a positive cash flow, and it'll take a little while for that to trickle down. But could we be seeing the end of the era of the big salary coaches? You've got SEC coaching staffs just the assistant coaching budgets that match or exceed a good portion of the group of 5 schools' total operating budgets for their athletic department.
Yeah, well, I think that to your point, I think here's what we have to look at. We have to look at the TV money. We have to look at the make goods. We have to look at the actual revenue that's being put out. If revenue craters and you're talking something 40, 50% somewhere in there, then I could see coaches having contracts restructured, what have you, much like we've seen in professional sports, where if you sit there and it's like, look, I'll pay you the same amount of money in your contract, but we can spread it out over a larger period of time. Yeah, you might end up with some kind of a Bobby Bonilla New York Mets kind of a deal with some of these larger coaches, but I think that you might be heading in that direction if revenue craters. If it doesn't, or if it's one of those ideas where it might take a little time to get everything back, that's like you're still getting the revenue that's come from your contracts.
Pickup.
Yeah, so I think that keep an eye on the revenue that the schools are going to be getting out of these contracts coming out of the other side of the pandemic. Then that would be the indicator for me as to one way or the other. Is this the end of the power contract for the Power 5 coaches, or is it just a blip?
Right, because you've got programs that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to be the latest and greatest with the athletic facilities, having all these unbelievable luxury items for players to enjoy while they're on campus,
Right.
Things that aren't necessarily accessible to regular students because the athletic departments, the athletic administration or foundation or whatever they call it,
Association, yeah, whatever you want to.
it's funding all of this.
Well, I think we will. We're seeing the importance of what college football is to not only to athletic departments, but really to the communities in general.
Oh, no doubt.
If this doesn't happen, I'm fascinated by some of the comments from Sean Fraser, the athletic director at Northern Illinois, who is bold enough to say this is devastating if we don't have a football season. And he goes into the numbers about $600 million of revenue generated for one football game, and or not for one football game, but for the entire season. He didn't put a number on one football game, but you multiply that by 12 and 13. You're talking about a lot of money, not to mention the TV rights component that comes into play. But I want to go back to what you're talking about, the coaching salaries and whether that is going to be affected. And yes, that to me, it'll probably be the last in the train of what's going to be affected. But it's once you get down to that level, yeah, I think you're going to start seeing some kind of sanity as far as paying coaches, and maybe this is a message that we're paying a little too much for college football coaches. I mean, they're making more than NFL coaches.
Oh yeah.
And I've always said if I ever got in the football coaching business, I'd much rather be an NFL coach than a college coach, because I don't have to worry about the recruiting aspect. And, I just wonder if it's gotten a little too crazy for them, where they have no time to themselves. At least in the NFL, you have a little time to yourself. But I think it's really, really going to be a telltale sign of coaching salaries. And but let's hope there is a college football season. And is that season going to happen in December? I mean, I'm seeing some kind of traffic out there that if there's any kind of delay, that they're looking into starting the football season and maybe late November and get them into January and February, affecting the college basketball. Maybe they move that back. But can you imagine Wisconsin playing a home game in December at Camp Randall?
That actually might be kind of fun.
Yeah, take the under.
Seeing snowball games those are always fun.
Minnesota at home.
Now, here's a thought.
College.
Well, here's a thought with Minnesota. would the Wilfs, depending on where the NFL season goes, would the Wilfs give the University of Minnesota and PJ Fleck the option of playing indoors, or would PJ Fleck want to use that home field advantage and play outdoors as he wants to row the boat in the middle of winter?
Go on, channel your inner Bud Grant. Play outdoors.
Just don't think for a second PJ Fleck wouldn't go full Bud Grant either.
Oh God, yes. Why not? It's a great gimmick. If you can jump on that bandwagon, do it. I love the idea of seeing, if we had to see college football played up in the North, in the Midwest, or the Northeast in January and even into February. Yeah, you'd see some snow games, but I mean, quite honestly, this year the snowfall and cold wasn't as big of a factor as it's been in the past.
Could you imagine Dakota Marker in?
I think it's at the Fargo Dome.
Wow.
For this season,
Why
so that kind of
ruin
defeats
my
the purpose.
man, come on.
Because remember, this past season is that Vermillion.
Brookings, yeah,
Brookings. I'm sorry.
With the game day and all that kind of stuff. I know, but yeah, game day, Fargo, middle of winter, book it.
That would be fantastic. There were all kinds of scenarios out there. I had heard some discussion over the course of the week as well that college football is going to get the season in one way or the other.
Yeah. I've seen that. I'm seeing an 8-game schedule with just conference games, and I've seen all sorts of scenarios like that. It's going to happen. Again, you shorten the schedule, you shorten your revenue stream. How do you appease the TV partners and all that?
Do you pay off all of the non-conference games? Do you pay them off, or is it act of God, force majeure, or do you meet them somewhere in the middle? Because these teams take these non-conference games to help fund their other sports. And so this is a part of the trickle-down effect. Yep. If you just do all of your conference games or a unified 8-game schedule, if you don't have 8 conference games or whatever, which non-conference game do you keep? Which non-conference? I mean, do you keep the big game at the beginning of the year that would have been played, say, at Jerry World or neutral site, like if you're Auburn? Do you keep the North Carolina game as a part of your schedule that would have been played at Mercedes-Benz and just play it wherever, and disregard all the other non-conference games with the 1AAs and the Go Fives? Because that is their lifeblood, and they're going to need it that much more if you go to that truncated schedule.
Well, I'll ask you guys this hypothetical here too. College football, like almost all the other major sports, professional-wise, have thrown around the idea of playing in front of in an empty stadium, playing in front of no crowd. Is that even does that purpose? I wrote a column.
It's the only one I can think of that has kind of been resistant to that, and that'd be a tough one, because now, I think with some of these professional leagues in basketball and hockey and so forth, the TV money kind of outweighs whatever they get from the gate receipts, because it's so enormous. Where I don't think, especially at the college level in football, it still matters that you've got somebody willing to pay what they pay for a single ticket at a college football game, and what they're willing to pay for a luxury box at insert your stadium name here. Plus with the donations, it's being tied into those ticket purchases. So that would be a tough one for college football to do something like that. I think they'll wait it out until the right amount of time when people can gather in large events, large venues again, which, hopefully that is in September. But if it's not and it has to be delayed, they'll wait it out until they can do that.
Too much money on the
a
table.
Different matter. Yeah.
I hope you're right. I mean, it was something I kind of got into a discussion on theonlinesportsguys.com, which is our website.
Nice plug. Nicely done.
Talking about just that very thing. Does it take away from the game if you don't have somebody there to see it? Yeah, sure, you can play, and the guys will play, and they'll play to the effort that they're able to perform to that given day. But does that eliminate the sport and the fun aspect of it? Does it become something that people, if they're stuck at home having to watch, would you go watch? And then the last question on to both of you about that is, if you do that and people are still under quarantine, what about the cost of having to have medical professionals and all the other people involved in a game day operation still there in a stadium to play when they shouldn't be there doing that in the first place?
That's something that the ADs have to weigh on your second part. On your first part of your question, look, college football is such a momentum game, and people, the players generate momentum off the crowd reaction, and vice versa for the visiting team, who usually has a little bit of a sizable contingent there that they hear. But football is so tied into emotion and momentum that if you played a college football game in an empty stadium, I really think that the product on the field would be wholly different from what you would see. Let's say LSU and Alabama are playing at Death Valley with nobody there. Now you think about that.
See WrestleMania 36.
It would. Be nothing. There's no roar. And those players, it would be a totally different product out there. If Joe Burrow throws a touchdown pass and you hear nothing, well, what's their reaction going to be? Yeah, exactly. You just hear a smattering of claps from the exactly. Golf claps from the coaching staff. I just think the product would look so bad out there and so different. I'm just talking about the players in general.
Oh, I know.
Where's the momentum going to come from? And college football is so tied to momentum and crowd reaction. And an empty Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge would just be, we're already living a bizarro world right now. When I'm walking around my neighborhood at 5:00, which is usually packed with cars, people coming home, empty, that would just be icing on the cake to see a college football October in Baton Rouge or Tuscaloosa or Columbus, Ohio, or wherever, where there's just no fans there and you're watching a bunch of guys playing football, and the product would be totally different.
Yeah, you couldn't even have the bands there for the Tennessee Volunteers to run out through the tee, or the Clemson Tigers to run down and hit Howard's Rock on their way into this empty stadium.
It'd be on the video board from a remote location, or it would be on tape. They'd have the band over at the band practice field with a camera there linked into the video board, or what they would probably do is just pull a performance from the past and just run it on loudspeaker, so that way you're not responsible for all those band members. And it's sad that I'm thinking about this seriously, because this is what you would see.
Yeah, and one of the responses I got when I wrote the column was, there have been soccer matches in Europe where they've played with nobody in the stadium, and you're right, that has happened. But is it the same thing?
You do get momentum in those situations, but at the same time, what you have 9 times out of 10 when you have a closed-door soccer match, it's because of ultras behaving badly. And those individuals are then outside the stadium, giving that same kind of environment that you would be hearing inside the stadium. They would be there. This would be a situation of football in quarantine, where that noise that's usually inside the stadium for a soccer match that would have been transferred outside the stadium for the soccer match doesn't exist, because it's not allowed. This is total radio silence to have a college football game.
Yeah, it's one thing, and John, you can speak more on the soccer aspect, although I'm quickly becoming more of a aficionado as well. But you watch a Premier League game in Wembley or Liverpool or wherever, and there's no fans there. That would be equivalent to what I mentioned about LSU Alabama playing in Baton Rouge with no fans there and no momentum. to the European fans, it would just be Bizarro World, and that would be, and quite honestly, might be the straw that broke the camel's back for me. If I saw that, I'm like, I'm out.
Well,
I'm sorry.
you had, as the world was trying to figure it out in the European theater about what to do in and around the pandemic, you still had matches in the Europa League that were played behind closed doors, and it was eerie. I mean, it was players, it was
That's what I'm talking about.
personnel, you had photographers, you had media, you had bare bones television production, but no fans. And it was like a training. It was like training was going on with the level of noise. I mean, you heard players and coaches yelling in cavernous stadia, and that was it.
And it goes back to what you were just describing there, to what I said at the end of my last point. To even do that in this current state and in the environment that we're in, you're running the risk of a player coming in potentially with the infection, and all of a sudden you've got 100, with rosters being at the size that they are, you're talking about 140 kids potentially exposed to it. Never mind the coaches or people that still need to be there to put on a game day operation. And I think that same thing applies to just about any of the sports that are talking about coming back and playing in front of empty arenas. Medical personnel and the testing and the people that are involved in getting this solved and resolved for all of us have bigger fish to fry than dealing with a sports event. And at the end of the day, that's really what the issue is.
Yeah. Where are your priorities?
Mm-hmm.
I get that, but
there's too much money on the table.
The country, well, that the country needs this. The country needs to look forward to sports again. I mean, we've gone almost a month without it, and I don't know about y'all's mood, but I'm kind of, the Final Four should have been played this week, and that this weekend has been kind of hitting me, the fact that there's not a big event to look forward to. We're not going to have the Masters next weekend. Two big events that are in our backyard this year that aren't going to happen. And, I think this pandemic's been good for a lot of things, as far as families getting together and those kind of things. People of different thinking or whatever, getting helping each other out. I think those have been good things out of this. But we need to start looking forward to those things that, as collectives, we like the three of us. I mean, we always look forward to the college football season. We always look forward to soccer. We always look forward to these things. We just don't have those things to talk about anymore, because this whole pandemic thing is just engulfed us, and we just need to look forward to something that makes us happy, that we can be passionate about, and that's missing right now. And sorry, I got on my soapbox a little bit about that, but it's been
all good points.
I mean, that's the thing I keep thinking about during this pandemic is, I think sports did the right thing of kind of shutting down a little bit, but now we've gotten to that point, and I see that with the college ADs in college football, where panic is starting to set in that these things may not happen, and how are you going to pay your bills? And I realize that kind of got me realizing, well, if we don't have a college football season to look forward to, I mean, what are we going to talk about? What's going to make us happy? I know that for people out there, they have different interests and different passions, but college football is such a passionate sport because people belong to those schools. And I don't know, it's just, I'm starting to realize about baseball season, and you guys know I'm a passionate baseball fan, and I think a lot of this too, if I don't mind getting a little personal here, if you guys are cool with that, is, we live in Fulton County, Georgia. The school system is shut down for the year. Cobb County for you. and DeKalb County for you, John. Okay, so we live in Metro Atlanta.
We've
All right,
we've covered the perimeter. We're all good.
Yeah,
We have different
yeah.
pieces.
We're not in school, so my son just lost his junior year of high school baseball, and I think that's when it hit me that this is a bigger thing, and those things that we look forward to that are gone, it's tough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I feel for the.
I'm gonna get off my soapbox now.
Why? That's what the show is for.
I feel for the college athletes, the guys that are seniors about to graduate or juniors that are getting ready to become seniors and so on down the line. I mean, this messes up their draft eligibility for the next year and whatever sport it is that they're particularly involved in. If that's the route that they choose to go, they're losing that year as well. And I would love to have some sort of an end goal in sight in terms of where we're going to be in a couple of months. But right now that doesn't exist.
Nope.
We're still in hugely uncharted territory, and we're not even at the point where things are starting to move back down. For all we know, they're going up, or they're still here and they're staying here. And until we see things start going back this way, we're probably not going to see the sports. I mean, it sounds weird to say this, but for me, I always based my seasons on before and after the Masters.
Yeah.
And the Masters would be coming up this following week after we tape this podcast. And after that point, you're on baseball and the NBA playoffs with a few other smaller professional sports going on at the same time as well. And it's the time where people pay a little bit less attention to what's going on in the world of sports, but that picks up again at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
And that's the part where I'm hoping when we get to May, when we get to the point where spring turns into the summer, where we have some sort of a goal, some sort of a target date, or some sort of at least wishful thinking kind of a date where things can start resuming again. And that's when you're going to see us get excited and talk about college football and talk about all the other sports and say, all right, now that we're back in business here, where do we go next?
But I think the country needs it for its psyche.
No question. I mean, if you bring in the 9/11 example, same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point right there. Because we went about a week without sports, and when we got back, everybody was not necessarily healed, but the healing process was beginning, and I think that's what we need with sports. And I'm encouraged because the best minds in the world are going to come up with a vaccine for this thing, and it's priority number one, and I'm staying pretty encouraged by what can there'll be a vaccine. There's going to be drugs that are going to be designed because we got the best in the world working on this thing right now. Can we talk about football?
One last thing that I'll say. Last week's show, all I'm going to say is, I told you so. Had to lighten the mood there a little bit. Why don't you take us? Why don't you take us to break here, Wilkie, so we can go hit some of the other topics here in the second half?
Yeah, I promise you, we're going to be talking football. We got a couple of topics out there we're going to talk about. So we're going to do that when we come back as the review returns after this break. See you then.
Enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
It all begins now. Chicka, chicka, chicka.
And welcome back to the review. John Wilkerson here. You can't see me because otherwise I'd be dropping out. And John Nelson to your left, Phil Cantor to your right. I'll just be the voice of God.
The voice of God. He's our John Facenda for this show.
That's right.
The autumn wind is a
The autumn wind is a pirate. Swashbuckling through. All right. So I'm glad to see that during this time of our pandemic, there's a little bit of a sense of humor in the SEC football. The city of Tuscaloosa showed a sign that said to help you with social distancing. That said 6 feet, like how far you would stand from an LSU fan.
Nope.
Now,
Nope.
John, your better half is from Alabama, an Auburn grad.
I was going to say, you better finish that sentence there, sir.
Is 6 feet enough to be for an Auburn person to be with an Alabama person, or does it need to be 12, 24, 36?
As far away as humanly possible, because 6 feet is still swinging distance.
Oh, if you have a good reach, right?
Good reach and a lunge. That's what it's about. So, yeah, more than 6 is recommended, and possible chain link fencing might need to be involved too. So I would say larger.
All right, let's go up to the upper Midwest, Ohio State, Michigan. Apply there.
Big Marty would say more than 6, although he might want it to be less than 6, so that way he could give a wedgie or something to a Michigan person. So I would say probably more than 6, but it depends on what you want to do if you want to get inside that social distancing zone.
All right, I'm going to take it a step. I'm going to take it a step further.
Okay.
Dakota marker.
Escalation.
The bison, and the jackrabbits.
Oh boy!
How far would that be?
Take your HD screen 16:9 and work on that a lot. That's the metric blank ton of distance in between the two.
The infinity distance, right?
The infinity, the metric infinity. Oh my God.
All right, let's circle back to Tuscaloosa. Some wrist slapping going on with Apple Watches. I said wrist slapping.
All right. According to Mark Slabaugh, ESPN.
Wrist slapping.
Yes, wrist slapping. So here's the video portion. There you go, wrist slapping. SEC is in the process of checking the use of smartwatches at Alabama. The Athletic reports that the university is in constant contact with the NCAA. Program was set up by 2 conditioning coaches. The watches, which I don't wear, include workouts and apps to help players stay in shape. NCAA recently allowed for workouts to be distributed to players with the stip that coaches were not permitted to monitor the workouts. The only member of Alabama staff reportedly observing the information from the watches has been Alabama's director of sports medicine, Jeff Allen. So why has everybody been out of shape? NCAA has seems to be the lack of uniformity in interpreting the NCAA regulations. So that is where they are, and maybe there might be some more wrist slapping, depending on
first century NCAA.
Yeah, really. So Apple smartwatches and Tuscaloosa, Tuscaloosa, they know the rules and they're working them as best they can, but the folks in Indianapolis are wagging their finger, apparently.
Because they are still looking at time clocks that say 1979.
Sundial, yeah, basically.
Clemson head coach Dabo Sweeney chimed in on this.
Oh, on this. Oh, okay.
I'm shocked.
Our guys are putting the work in. We don't need an Apple Watch to track them.
Good for you.
Ohio State head coach Ryan Day also chimed in on this.
Of course he did.
Just sit there and say we're going to monitor them through a Fitbit or something like that. We're not going to go down that road. There are too many things that are a little dangerous in terms of whatever, some hours. We give them things to do. We give them guidelines. We think the leaders of the position groups will do a great job. So a couple of big time coaches kind of making light of the Alabama situation.
Good for you. See, I thought you were going to bring up the other Dabo Swinney topic.
Which is?
Let's see. How do we phrase this? On Friday, Dabo talked to the members of the media and gave his, standard positivity. Yeah, it was, he's as confident as possible, suggesting that college football's 2020 season will kick off as currently scheduled. And he says, quote, "I don't have any doubt. I have zero doubt that we're going to be playing and the stands are going to be packed. I've got one plan. That's to get to the Tigers ready to play in late August, early September." So, of course, with that, then he decides that he's going to go on vacation with his family. And he said his family flew to Florida recently on a private plane and is contemplating flying again next week for Easter. Quote, "The plane was sanitized. We don't have any concern." End quote. And he got lit up on Twitter once that came out.
He should have gotten lit up on Twitter. That's one of the dumbest statements that I've heard so far in the past week.
So
never mind, why would you do that? Why would you even say that you're doing that? That's moronic, considering the environment. Considering the environment we're currently in. And yeah, great. Say for the sake of hypothetical, Dabo and his family are healthy and they haven't had any issues. Who's to say that they're not carrying it, first of all? And what gives them the right to put the workers and the people who have to put them on their private plane and fly them down there? What's to say any of them are protected? How does he know that? Never mind the people he's putting at risk by going into Florida, a state that's got a huge problem with this pandemic as it is.
Yes.
That's
so much for the lighthearted segment in the second block. But you do know that Dabo Swinney has ideated. There's a word for you. Ideated. Yes, ideated a new acronym for the coronavirus situation. To Tigers. Tigers stands for "This is going to end real soon."
Okay.
I'm just reading what the Greenville paper had. Just reading it. Just being the messenger of information here.
I'm at a loss. That's
not
this.
A bad joke.
That's what he does. I mean, he sits there and, as a part of his coaching mantra and behavior pattern, it's acronyms, it's quick phrases, it's those kinds of things. But this is not the kind of time that you need to do quick phrasing. I'm sorry. I'm glad. Frankly, I know that at the time that he traveled, South Carolina did not have a stay-at-home order in place. Neither did the state of Florida. I understand the rationale of wanting to travel from one state to the other. But, and this is the largest but that I can think of, I defer back to what Phil was talking about. Come on, dude. Really? The only thing missing right now is Seth and Amy. Really? Really? I mean, think. Just for a second and a half. Oh, that was why I got fired up when you mentioned Dabo Swinney previously, Wilkie, because I thought that's where you were going. But okay. There you go. But so no, I defer to Phil's perspective here.
So again, we've totally blown the concept that this would be a lighter block.
Next.
All right, what do you got, guys?
Okay, well, here's something cool. Jason Candle, the head coach at Toledo, he did something really cool. He heard about one particular local restaurant owner, and this is from our friends at College Football Talk and Kevin McGuire. Heard about the struggles of a local restaurant owner, Ed Bekchinski. And Ed has provided catered meals for Toledo football in the past, so Coach Candle stepped in to help him out while providing some free meals for police and firefighters in Toledo. Candle bought lunch from Buzinski's Deli for the Toledo Police Department and 4 local fire stations in the town of Toledo. How about that?
That's cool.
Well,
All right, I'm
done.
gonna go lighthearted with you guys here. I'm getting tired of this heavy talk.
All right.
All right. So Ed Orgeron and his wife Kelly have filed for divorce.
Yes, that's lighthearted.
All right. Well, Coach O is now on the market. How nervous should the young ladies, or the eligible ladies, I should say, of
eligible of the entire state of Louisiana? Don't just
Louisiana. Let's keep it. Let's keep it in Baton Rouge and New Orleans and around there. How nervous should the eligible ladies of let's say Louisiana and Southern Mississippi? How?
Might want to reverse that. How nervous should the eligible ladies of Southern or Central Louisiana be because Ed Orgeron is now on the market?
On the prowl.
Swipe right, swipe right, swipe right, swipe
Or
right.
or should Coach O be nervous?
That. Could you imagine the Match.com and eHarmony profiles that pop up? I mean, think about it for a second.
I just wish the dating game was still around.
Oh, Jim Lang.
Bring back Jim Lang.
That's how we sign off the show this week, is with dating game kisses. That's how we have it.
Sandwich and some potato chips after a win.
Bachelor number 3. What do you do for fun? Well, coach football.
Coach football. Go Tiger.
Go Tigers.
Literally, that's how every answer probably would end. Is with all the
Go
3
Tigers.
bachelorettes, it would be Go Tiger. That'd be how every answer would end on that episode of the dating game, and it would be awesome.
I just keep thinking back to his ham sandwich and chips comment after they beat Alabama.
Bachelor number 3. What is a perfect meal for you late night?
I like a bow gumbo and some gator tail.
Ham
Go Tigers.
Ham sandwich and
Ham
sandwich and
sandwich.
chip. Ham sandwich and chip. Go Tiger. Oh my God, that would be tremendous. Yeah, I mean that's that's tremendous. That's more than a golf clap for me. Just imagining the Match.com and eHarmony conversations and the dating game with the coach. Coach O dating.
Imagine for a minute. Remember that old show, First Date, or something like that, where they
Roger Lodge.
Yes, and they followed a couple around on their first date with cameras and did it as a
Oh my God, yes. Oh, that would be awesome.
All right, I'm going to take it up another level with Coach O.
Uh-oh.
Had he gotten a job at Southern Cal and this happened? What do you think he would do in the LA market?
I would be interested. That would be a case where you just needed to plant a camera outside of his house 24/7 and let it ring camera.
Phil, it was even worse. It was blind date, not first date.
Oh, sorry.
That's that blind date, yeah.
Hey everybody, I'm Roger Lodge and welcome once again to the party known as Blind Date.
Blind date with Coach O. Oh.
That would be epic.
Roger Lodge comes back to host it.
Oh, the
First date with Coach O, go Tiger. That's the name of the show, literally. First blind date with Coach O, go Tiger.
Watch as Coach O takes his limousine ride with his date.
It's a film study.
Now, when Coach O speaks, would it need subtitles?
No. That's condescending.
Take the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Seriously?
I always thought if he got the Southern Cal job and he he did his coaches show that, which I don't know if anybody watches the Southern Cal coaches show in the LA market, but there might be a few people would again. Yeah, exactly. Would it need subtitles? Because I'm just trying to imagine the people in Southern California trying to interpret what Ed Orgeron said.
I was okay with it. As someone who was born in Southern California, I was okay. Of course, I guess that's because I'm a Southern transplant.
Yeah, you're. Yeah.
But dude,
no.
what did that man on television just say?
God, blind date. Oh, blind date with Coach O would be so awesome.
Oh, imagine the possibilities. I gotta find a clip.
Maybe he'll be on the Bachelorette.
The Bachelor.
Maybe he'll be the Bachelor. There you go.
Bachelor with the coach.
ABC, you got to make this happen.
No, we'll produce it. We'll put it together. Actually, you know what? If the SEC network did
it. Blind date with Coach O.
On the SEC network. Oh my God.
But you'd have to pair it with Lane Kiffin because he's single too.
He is?
I think he is.
He divorced? He divorced his wife?
I want to say he got a divorce.
Oh, wow.
We'll check on that, and we'll update that for you next week on the review, because we're coming up with some really good trash television as we're thinking out loud with Coach O and his unfortunate divorce.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Single coaches.
Course,
imagine the possibilities.
Oh, that's great.
And of course, it's very important that the LSU offense score as many points as they can in the upcoming season, but it's probably just as important how Coach O scores on the single scene as well.
Oh, no.
Oh. Had to say it, and Wilkie did.
Oh. As long as you're scoring at home and on the road, exactly. Yeah.
On the field and off.
On the field and off. Make sure that you're scoring and that your scorebooks are full.
You always want to put points on the board.
Yes. Oh, Hawk, and then you'd have Hawk Harrelson drops. You can put it on the board. Yes.
Better
be gone
than shut out.
Oh,
mercy.
Oh God. I think that's the point, because we're going to go on this riff when the show is over, but I think that's a good time to put a bow on it.
All right. Well, guys, I appreciate you rescuing what was a downer of a show into this new life that we had about Apple Watches and Dabo and now Coach O and the show idea, which we may put on our YouTube channel. Who knows?
Damn right.
But
bring back blind date.
So remember, we are out on the World Wide Web at many, many ways. You can hear us on Spreaker, our host site, Stitcher Radio, on YouTube, which is where you're watching us right now.
Unless you're listening.
Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. On Twitter, on OSG Sports, Facebook OSG Sports, and of course our website at the onlinesportsguys.com, and plus our phone app, OSG Sports, where you can hear a lot of our content, and John will bring it up on his phone while I'm closing the show.
There you go.
So there we go. Thank you, boys. That is free advertising at its best. So we hope you've enjoyed our little discussion on college football, and we'll be doing it again next week. Remember, throughout the spring and summer, as we're enduring COVID-19 2020, we are going to start talking about some subjects on our podcast. And so look for those shows, and please give us suggestions on our Twitter page, our Facebook page, or carrier pigeon. Put a stamp on a letter, however form of communication whatever form of communication is good for you. Let us know. For John, for Phil, I'm John. So long, everyone.
Bring back blind date. Bring black blind.
Black.